I find that so funny, like Manhattan. You would think Manhattan real estate would be so interesting, but I've done videos on Manhattan real estate. No one cares. But Florida, everyone cares about Florida. I think it's like...
My first question that I ask everyone is when they say they want to sell their home, I said, why would you want to do that? If someone tells me they want to buy, why? The why is the most important thing.
And the more I posted videos on my YouTube channel, the more I realized oh, I should make this data available, not just to me, but to all my viewers.
Because if the market's pulling back, it's like putting bait in the water. We need to catch it before it's too low. And overpricing a home is the worst thing you can do for days on market.
If you make a video, top 10 cities where home prices will crash in 2025, versus a video, top 10 cities where home prices will surge in 2025, you could make them equal quality. You could do similar thumbnails. The one that says top 10 cities where prices will crash will literally get 4 times as many views.
But here's a little bit of a deep thing, and I've tied it all together, is that I guarantee you, Nick, that your why is attached to love. Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete. I'm your host, Ryan Bogden. Before we dive into today's amazing guest, which I'm really excited about this one, I want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Bogden Homes at Keller Williams St. Pete. So if you or anyone you know is interested in learning more about the Tampa Bay area, whether you're moving here, selling here, investing here, or you just need a new landscaper, find our information in the description below. And now on to our new amazing guest. I have Nick Gerli. Did I say it right?
That's right.
Oh, yes. CEO of Reventure app is here to join us today. Nick, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
You know, he never says his name on his YouTube videos. You recognize him from Reventure app, and
That's
also your Reventure is your YouTube channel is Reventure.
Reventure Consulting.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's all over the interwebs talking about the real estate market for the last 3 years or so, yeah?
3.5, 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well, and we're also good buddies, and we hang out and talk about all of the crazy things of life, so I'm happy to have you here.
That's
dude.
right. Great to be on, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. Thank you. So, Reventure app, what a journey, dude, to watch you go through and grow this thing. It's so cool, and people are finding it so useful.
Yeah.
Why don't you just, for like the 2 viewers who don't know who you are or what your app is, just give us a little, what's your elevator pitch on the app?
Sure. So it's an app that helps home buyers, investors, and realtors better understand the trends in the market down to the zip code level for home prices, inventory, rent. And then we also have forecasts. So, basically allowing people to just better understand where have home prices head, where could they be heading in the future over the next 12 months. We believe that, the housing market's a $50 trillion asset class that people just don't really understand well from a data perspective. So Reventure app is here to kind of fill that gap and help someone who's buying a house, selling a house, better understand where the market's heading, because that will allow them to understand what to offer, how to price the house, and maybe if they should buy or not buy. So that's kind of the overall mission.
No, it's super helpful. You're the data guy. So you're now reside here in St. Pete, but your journey didn't start here.
No.
Give us a little background. Like, how does one start a real estate analytical data app?
Yeah, so it's a crazy story. For me, it was very organic. Like all types of stuff kind of just started happening in my life. I originally worked in a commercial real estate. So out of college, I got a job for a debt fund in Boston, Massachusetts. We made loans on apartment buildings and hotels all around the U.S. Usually like $5 million to $20 million loans, and I was an underwriter at that company. And that's how I originally got my exposure to real estate. And I traveled all around the U.S. and went to Atlanta and Florida and Dallas and Phoenix and California. I learned all about these different markets doing these deals. But the longer I worked there, the more interested I became, less in the deal and more in the location. Like, why was Austin a better market to do a hotel than Corpus Christi, Texas? And I wanted to understand that from a fundamental perspective. Not just oh, Austin's growing, but I wanted to understand, why is it growing? How much is it going to grow in the future? So around 2018, that thought bubble started in my head, 2019. And then eventually when I left that firm, I started consulting for a couple other companies, kind of figuring that out. And then it eventually led to me starting my YouTube channel, which was kind of a happy accident. All of a sudden I started posting some videos to YouTube showing the data that I started pulling on the US housing market. That blew up, became the biggest real estate channel in the US, still is, over 600,000 subscribers. And the more I posted videos on my YouTube channel, the more I realized oh, I should make this data available, not just to me, but to all my viewers. And so I started building an app to make that happen. But it was a very organic process.
Because you were just genuinely curious. You wanted the data for yourself.
That's exactly right. Like
Selfish guy, you.
I wanted the data for myself. Like I wanted to be on my computer. I'm not gonna lie. Like I literally spend like still now I'm 35 and doing this 5 or 6 years, but I still literally spend 6 hours a day sometimes just like staring at real estate data on my computer. Like I like doing that more than anything else. And so I was like, how can I make this easier for me to stare at real estate data and analyze data and put graphs together? And I originally started using a program called Tableau to make the graphs. And it's a good program, but I wanted it to be easier. So I was just like, yeah, let's make this app to make it easier for me and then my viewers as well in the future to access the data. So I guess the moral of the story is like always kind of just this organic process of learning about it more and more and then sharing it more and more.
Well, if there's a lesson in there, because I'm always trying to unpack, like, where's like for anyone, like, you know, I interviewed so many business owners on the show, and I'm always curious of where the seed of thought what starts. And I like that you referred to it as a thought bubble and happy accident, but it was you following up your passion.
That's right.
And then you realized that there was a need in the market for others that wanted what you were finding out.
100%. And I almost got told it too. So, you know, I would post YouTube videos and I would see people in the comment section say, hey, how can I get that data? Right. So then I also started getting the feedback.
You said happy accident on YouTube. What made you start the YouTube channel? Because that's driven your success a little bit.
Yeah. So originally from the Northeast, grew up in New York, worked in Boston. But after I left that company in Boston, I moved to Columbus, Ohio for a consulting assignment. And then after Columbus, I moved to Austin, Texas. And when I moved to Austin in late 2020, that's kind of when I started really pushing Reventure Consulting, my consulting company. And at first, Reventure was purely like an idea to like help other real estate developers and apartment owners understand the data. And so I tried to sell the data and market reports to other, you know, someone who's trying to build an apartment building, like where should we build an apartment building? But in that process, which was an interesting process, I had to go on LinkedIn and try to connect with people and sell them and put together like a lead funnel and all this stuff. I was like, it would be great if I could just record a video of myself showing the data and then send it to them, right? So if you're an apartment owner or a single family developer wanting to know about the data, let me just send you this video, 2 minutes of me showing you it. And I use YouTube to upload them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point in late 2020, I uploaded some video on the Austin, Texas housing market to send someone, and it got 20,000 views accidentally.
Oops.
This is right around the time when Austin, Texas's housing market was going insane. Like Joe Rogan just moved there.
Yeah.
And so I think Oracle relocated their headquarters there. And I was like, whoa. So there's actually demand.
So that was the happy accident.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
No, that's amazing that the universal consciousness just awarded you, right? Because it's like, here was a need.
Yeah.
People want this information. Okay, so you leaned into it.
I did. It was a clear message, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And then by, I think, March or April 2021, I was monetized on my YouTube channel. To make money on YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers and I think 4,000 watch hours. I think I crossed that threshold sometime in like February 2021. And by April 2021, I was actually making a decent amount of money off YouTube advertising revenue on my videos. So that was just a clear message. I was trying to push this side of the business on consulting, like directly selling data to real estate investors. Right. But then it just was a struggle.
It wasn't packaged well.
It also wasn't my skill. Like I'm not really a sales guy. Like putting up a lead funnel and all this stuff. I'm not that great at it. I did sell some market reports and coaching and stuff like that, but it was just kind of a struggle, right? And then
it wasn't as organic for you.
Wasn't organic. And then this happened with YouTube, and I started making money from YouTube, and I was like, oh, that's what you got to do.
Your passion, you're telling people about it, and you're getting paid for it.
Yeah.
That's a
win.
So
it was like a message. And I think the interesting thing in entrepreneurship, right, is like a lot of people go into it with an idea of what they want to do, which is good. You have to have an idea. But then you do it, and then you get a message, right? Like maybe after 6 months, you get a message of like, this is or isn't working. And then there might be another message. It's like, this is working. And then often it requires pivoting to what is working, right? And I guess that's what I did, looking back on it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great awareness, leaning into that. So we're in 2021, YouTube's going well. How do we get to the app?
So then I think sometime in late 2021, I put out a feeler on my YouTube channel for software developers. I was like, hey guys, I'm like looking at developing this app. And then a couple reached out to me and we started building an MVP, minimum viable product, which in real estate or in tech terms is just like the base version of the software you want, not worrying about bells and whistles, not worrying about UX. And it took about took about a year to build that. And it was slow,
Slower than you thought.
slow. I mean, I had never built a tech product before, right? And so learning how to hire people to do that, having to learn like terminology, that was a whole process and still is in 2025. But then in late 2022, it was ready. The MVP was ready, and we launched it beta for free. And I started just promoting it really in early 2023, the free version. And, we had a sign-up form to collect email addresses and built an email list, and then used that next year as a way to make it even better in 2023. So it was actually kind of a long process. It was probably like a 2-year process before it actually launched, like the version that's now out launched.
That's great insight, because I feel like some people think like, oh, you just start an app and it happens. But like you had, a platform and an audience.
Yep.
You knew a need. You took your time, maybe intentionally, unintentionally, of building out this thing, to make sure it worked. Released it to an audience, got feedback on it, have tailored it now over the last 2 or 3 years, and now you have a viable app on the App Store.
That's right.
That's cool, man.
So we're on web and mobile. So initially it was the web app, www.reventure.app. So it's like a website. You can go look at the data. There's a housing market map, and you can zoom into your zip code. And then about 3 months ago, we launched the mobile application on iOS and Android. That took separately about 9 months to develop, which is interesting because we developed the app, the web app. I built this whole team. Then we started developing the mobile app, and it was almost like a different ball of wax completely. Like you would think, oh, it's easy to develop a mobile app after you develop a web app. No, it's like a whole different thing, because it's also like a different audience. Like when you have a mobile app, it's more consumer facing, right? More people will download it, right? But then they're expecting a user experience that's more seamless. So we had to really put a lot of time and thought into the UX. We probably had like 3 different versions of how the UX and the flow would work. I mean, so much of this time on apps is spent thinking about how users use your app.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get that, if you don't have a good first 10 seconds of them using it, it's over. You're done.
Over.
It's done.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure that first 10 seconds.
How crazy is that? That is interesting. You think about when you because there's some apps you download and they're just seamless.
Yep.
From the moment you download to you make an account to integrate it, just boom, 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 boom. There's no roadblocks. Just
right.
Flows.
And
then you get one to where you need something, piece of what is going on, and gone.
Yeah, that's so and it's fascinating that apps like that can even exist, right? Because I
guess it depends on the need, right?
It depends what it's for, and how much attention they're putting into it.
Yeah.
Right. Like we really care. Like I really care about people using the application. Even we have most of our users are free users. It's a freemium product, but I really care for all the users, free users. Like I want everyone to have a good experience.
From our conversation on the side.
And if we get like feedback, we have a little feedback form. If we get feedback from people like this isn't working, I flip out. Like mentally, I flip out. I'm like, no, that we need to fix that. And so it's also a lot about just caring, right, about people's experience.
100%. I mean, you need to. I think. People can tell if you don't, and it won't work. I mean, that's why you're finding success in this. One, you're providing like data, good experience.
Right.
You're passionate about it. You have a great platform. So it's interesting. So how did you end up in St. Pete, man?
That's an interesting story. So during the pandemic, I've moved every year. Moved to all these different cities. Moved to Columbus, moved to Austin, moved to Dallas, moved to Nashville, then moved here. And each step along the way was kind of a journey in almost seeing all these housing markets in some way, right? That like helped me with my YouTube channel and helped me with the app. See the boom in Austin, right? To see the boom in Dallas and Nashville, to see the start to the correction in St. Petersburg. And so there was something about having to move to all these cities, I think from a business perspective, that was important. But Florida is, for what I do, being a housing market reporter on YouTube and having a data application, you need to be in Florida.
Why?
Because it's the state that people care about most in terms of real estate. So even if we're in a correction, eyeballs are all on Florida, if that makes any sense. Like no one really cares what's going on in New York's housing market. Like I find that so funny. Like Manhattan, you think Manhattan real estate would be so interesting, but I've done videos on Manhattan real estate. No one cares. But Florida, everyone cares about Florida. I think it's like, even people in Illinois and Ohio, in their mind, they might be like, I eventually want to have a condo in Florida. maybe 5 years from now.
So you thinking the people back somewhere in their thought bubbles, Florida, there's a picture of Florida.
There's a picture of Florida, and there's some relation to it. Like maybe their parents have a house
They're at
here
the Villages
vacation.
or something. Yeah.
I went there for the first time like a month ago. Super strange place. Not sure I'm ever going to go back to the Villages. But yeah, or like my friend who's visiting here, his parents go down to Sarasota.
Yeah.
You know, so I think a lot of people just have like a connection to Florida. They family vacations in Florida.
Disney.
Yeah. Oh, we went to the beach in, Pinellas County. Like, so I think just a lot of people, Florida's top of mind. A lot of people want to eventually buy a place in Florida. And I also think it became somewhat controversial during the pandemic because Florida, in my opinion, did such a good job during the pandemic in keeping it open and attracting people. But that also made it more controversial. It was talked about in the news all the time. So I think all these things have combined to make Florida just like the number one place for interest in real estate. So for what I do, it's just imperative that I be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of controversy, you sometimes get a little pushback because you're like always saying the sky's falling, right?
Yeah.
But if you get further into your videos, I mean, it's not all that, right? So my question is, where do you think is a good opportunity right now? And like, what's your perspective, right? Because if your reporting is, and it's inaccurate, right? But like, okay, down 4% here, down 3% here, down 1.2% here, it gets the views,
right?
Gets the attention,
right? So I just want to address that really quick. Yeah. So a lot of people say, "Oh, Nick, you're a doomsayer," right? So like, there's two things with that. There's one is my fundamental perspective on the housing market, which is influenced by just looking at historical home value charts. 100-year charts of home prices to income, home prices to inflation, home prices to rent. All those charts say the U.S. housing market is in a bubble. So that's the fundamental perspective underpinning like my videos.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is like, if you make a video, top 10 cities where home prices will crash in 2025 versus a video, top 10 cities where home prices will surge in 2025. You could make them equal quality. You could do similar thumbnails. The one that says top 10 cities where prices will crash will literally get 4 times as many views.
So wild.
Because there's something about negative sentiment, like that creates a sense of urgency, I think. And then people will more likely want to click that.
Yeah.
Because it makes them, we're getting down to really like intense like YouTube specifics here and Instagram, but like someone's scrolling on YouTube and they're seeing all these different thumbnails and titles. What just immediately with like in half a second catches someone's attention.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we're talking about here. And then it's a difference literally, not of a video getting, for me, a good video for me gets 300,000 views. A bad video would get maybe 150. Sometimes though, if I did a video, top 10 states where prices are going to go up.
You get 3 million?
No, it got 100,000.
Oh,
like it got, which I know.
But your most viewed is like 3 million or something, right?
Yeah. Top 7 worst cities or something.
Yeah.
So that's just to address the point that, say I actually really did have a bullish take on the housing market, and I wanted to get it out there to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You actually can't
do it
in the lead, but then you could do it in the video itself. So I was actually thinking about Austin. So Austin's a market where prices have gone down 21% from peak in mid-2022. Austin's corrected more than any other housing market. My metrics say Austin is now only 7% overvalued. By the end of this year, Austin's going to cross into undervalued territory. And I'm probably going to buy a place in Austin at the end of this year, actually. But then I was thinking, how do I like start talking about this, right? Like, and if I were to make a video like, now is the time to buy in Austin, Texas, no one would watch that video. Like, but then if I made a video, the epic collapse of Austin, Texas, and then described what happened, but then 2 minutes in, I'm like, but guys, now look at this. Here, it's starting to become fairly valued. Mm-hmm. Here's the time, like maybe it could be time to buy by the end of 2025. So it's very interesting, like if you want to get your message out on social media, you have to respect how it works in the sense that the lead on the title and thumbnail and the lead in a reel has to be something urgent.
Well, I love that you unpack that really well. because you're a data guy. And so it's natural for you to look at what's going to get me the most exposure.
Right.
And as you were saying that, it gave me so much further insight into why big media is the way that it is.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I can't. So knowing what I know now from social media, anytime I look at a headline, I'm thinking not about like, is that triggering me or not? I'm thinking, why did they write it that way?
Right.
Because that's what everyone does, like on mainstream media, and they come up with titles. You see this with Trump all the time. Not to make this political, but like, there'll be a title that will be like super aggressive and say that he did something, but then you'll read 3 paragraphs in, and it's like, oh, he didn't actually do that, or like he might have said something like that. And they do that with like a lot of different people and characters, and so it's always like
Florida man. Florida man, right?
Florida man. It's a real thing. I've lived here for almost a year.
No, it's a real thing.
Florida man's a real thing.
It's a real thing for sure. There is some wackadoodles here for sure. But no. I wanted to put that out there because I know, if there's just question, right? There's question about it. And to your point though, about views on people, all these areas that you're saying maybe are crashing or coming down. That's what it's so crazy because, being on the other side of this and selling real estate, and listening to Gary Keller, who's been selling real estate since the 70s, and like people who've gone through all these different market shifts, literally wrote a book called Shift. Just as like when the stock market has a pullback or a correction, when everyone else is selling is the exact time to buy. Things are on sale. And you can never time the market perfectly. It's time in market, right? You're trying to get lucky and time it perfectly at the bottom or top, and it just doesn't. Like Warren Buffett says, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You need to be in it. And so these areas where you're like, oh, they're down. We're experiencing that right now. I got some of the data here for Pinellas County. When buyers are sitting on their hands, it's actually the exact time to buy.
So I think it's a nuanced perspective, and I think of it in 2 ways. And I'm going to say, I think you can time the market in real estate, and that's what I'm trying to do on Reventure app. I think it's very possible, actually. And there's 2 things. There's 2 ways we look at it. One is, what's our price forecast for the next 12 months? So you can pretty confidently forecast out a year based on the current trends in inventory, DOM, price cuts, mortgage rates. We found that we can pretty confidently forecast that out a year. So I think Pinellas County, we think it's going to go down -6 over the next 12 months, let's say, -6%. But the question is, will it stop going down after -6%? And for that, we have a fundamental analysis, which is we compare how home values trade to income and rent. Because income is what determines how much a home buyer can afford. And then rent determines how much an investor can afford. So if your home price to income and home price to rent ratios are way above the long-term average, we're going to say prices might drop 6%, but they could keep dropping after that. Conversely, if your home price to income and home price to rent ratios come back down to normal or are below normal, we would say, oh, that's an undervalued market. I think you can get pretty precise. You can't predict the exact month, but in the case of Florida is such an interesting housing market. So big bubble in the mid-2000s. A lot of people have forgotten about this. So in the mid-2000s, a lot of people moved to Florida. Builders built a lot of homes. Prices went way up and then literally crashed 50%. From 2007 to 2012, prices in Florida went down 50%, meaning if you bought a $400,000 house, it became a $200,000 house. I don't think that's going to happen again. But like, that happened. That's a fact. Now, in 2012, home prices in Florida, according to our data, were 35% undervalued. And really for the next 8 to 9 years, prices in Florida were undervalued or fairly valued relative to income and rent. So when it's fairly valued or undervalued relative to income and rent, you can feel very confident buying because it's like, market in the next year might do something, but like I know I'm getting it at a good basis, essentially. When the market becomes very overvalued, which Florida has become, I think you have a harder time making the time in the market claim. Because yes, time in the market is true. Over 20 plus years, it'll appreciate. But If you buy today or you bought a year ago, you're still buying at a level that's overpriced, and you have greater exposure to downside risk and less exposure to upside. So I think it is correct to say time in the market in real estate over the long run does win. But in the intervals of 5 years, let's just call it 5-year cycles, 10-year cycles.
7-year.
Let's call it a 7-year cycle. I think you can use data to help yourself make a better decision.
No doubt. No doubt. I think it all is very dependent. Interesting that in your data point, interest rates weren't considered.
Yeah. So,
why is that?
So it's actually in our 12-month forecast is the trend in mortgage rates. We have a metric called mortgage payment as percentage of income. It's one that I look at a lot. It's not in our forecast, but it's one I look at. And that's another sign of like it's not affordable, because in Florida, the typical home buyer who earns the median income now needs to spend 40% of their income gross on their mortgage, tax, and insurance payment. Prior to the pandemic, it was 23%. So prior to the pandemic in Florida, a local buyer, see, this is the key, a local buyer could easily buy a house, which provides a lot of fundamental demand support.
Mm-hmm.
Then during the pandemic, big influx of people, right? People from New York City paying cash.
California.
You saw it, California, right?
Yep.
You came here in 2021.
Yep.
Right in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now that distorts the market, because all of a sudden your buyer pool composition changes, right? It's now not based off median income in the area. It's now based off who's moving in. But then that level of migration was never going to hold that we saw in 2021 and 2022. Now it's come down actually to a below normal level. Florida's still adding people, just
I mean, we were in a white hot market, so it's really hard to compare. Like when people are like, "Oh, the market's coming down," and I'm on one page with you on all this. Even seeing a little pullback in prices this year, we forget how quick prices went up.
Right.
In 2020 and 2021.
That's right.
Like the market wasn't hot. It was white hot.
It was insane.
It was like supernova hot. And so if we average out the correction we're about to see with that, home prices still go up year to year, right? If we're looking at a 7-year average going around, like if we're going to look at home prices in the early 2000s to now, they're up, right? If we look at even 2010 to now, they're up. And not to say we're always at the top or bottom of a moment, never the market.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Look, the 5-year appreciation rate is another metric we look at. I think the 5-year appreciation rate in Florida is still like 51%. Right. So
it's not like, our home prices down this year. Yeah, but they went up 30% from 2020 to 2022.
It depends, right? So if someone is like bearish on the housing market, they're going to focus on the fact that prices are down 5% year over year. Mm-hmm. If someone's more bullish on the housing market, they're going to focus on the fact, but it did go up this.
Well, I think
then what's relevant for a buyer? Right?
Well, it depends on everything comes down to, and this is why it's so interdependent, and even to people moving it, like you're saying, well, we saw homes sell below what they bought it last year. It all comes down to the reason of why. My first question that I ask everyone is when they say they want to sell their home, I said, why would you want to do that? When someone tells me they want to buy, why? The why is the most important thing, right? Because if you're coming in the home and said, I want to buy this house, but I'm probably going to sell it next year. Well, it might not make sense.
Right.
But you say, look, I'm buying this house. My wife and I are starting a family. We want to live here for the next 5-7 years. This is what we need. We're outside, like, all the factors. Okay, boom, it could make sense. On the reverse, someone's going to sell and they're selling because they need to, not because they want to.
Sure.
They got offered a new job somewhere else and they're like, hey, we're willing to take a little bit of a haircut on this because we know now, yes, we might be taking a haircut here, but if you're taking a haircut when you're selling your home, you're also able to get a little bit of a deal when you're buying your home.
Yeah, if you buy in the same area.
Right? Yeah, it's close too. So it's like it kind of is a seesaw and levels out a little bit on that. But the why matters, because someone who says, well, I just want to move because I want to. Well, maybe it doesn't make the most sense to sell right now. So why is important, because death happens, babies happen, all of these other things happen in people's lives.
I love that you said those two, because I feel like those are the fundamental drivers. those are the non-discretionary drivers of
Right.
buying and selling houses, right? Is births and deaths. And I just actually look at my mom. So my mom is still lives in upstate New York, where I'm from. She wants to potentially buy a place in Florida. She's also looking at Tennessee, and but there's no immediate impetus, right? Like there's no like I'm not married and I don't have a kid on the way, right? So it's like she's not going to be a grandmother imminently, right? So without that, she's kind of like sitting on her hands a bit, looking at the market. And I just think that's such a germane point, because I think a lot of people have shifted into this perspective here in 2025. There's like not an immediate need, right? And so they're waiting. One thing I think is really interesting, though, we were talking about beforehand, is the seller perspective on the market. I think is so fascinating to understand, because when I look at like the demand metrics and the inventory, months of supply, all this other stuff, sometimes I say to myself, how have prices not dropped by more, right? Like how have we not had like a quicker correction? And I then look at like certain listings where like some sellers like bought a house 2 years ago, the market's corrected since then, but they're still listing 20% above. I would love for you to like talk about, like, from your perspective, how that mindset works with sellers. Yeah. And how do you communicate to a seller that the market shifted? And what are like the biggest things you hear from them, like about the price they want and all that?
So again, first question is always why, right? Because sometimes on some of those sellers, one, did they do any, maybe they put a new roof on, maybe they did some things to the house, but let's say that they didn't do a thing to the house for your example. Equal house and they're listed above. Some people just want to test the market. They'll go, I'll move if you can get my price. I don't need to sell, but you can get my price, you do it. And then you have an agent who sold 3 homes this year, and they're like, I'll list it at whatever you want. I don't care, because I got a listing. I'm excited, and I don't know left from right, Nick. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not, but they said if I can get this price, I get to get paid. So I'm going to list their home. Inexperienced agents. A lot of agents are inexperienced. They don't have enough data. They don't have enough cycles. They don't have the right mentors to talk to them about the shifts and the mindset that we need to educate sellers on. So I always like to bring data. Like I got the data sitting here. Like I always say, this is where we're at and what is your why? Because if we have a sense of urgency, then we need to price appropriately. And the worst thing that sellers can do on that seller's like, let's say they need to move now and they say, but I want my price. I actually advise that we list below what they think their home is worth, what the comps are showing us. Because if the market's pulling back, it's like putting bait in the water. We need to catch it before it's too low. And overpricing a home is the worst thing you can do for days on market. Because now you do a price reduction of 2%, but the market said, nope, we're actually at 3% below that. And you missed them. And then you wait another 2-3 weeks or a month, and then you go, okay, we're going to lower another, but now it's down another percent. And you just keep missing it. Whereas if we just priced it below, if the market said that the price should have been higher, we would have had 2 bids, 3 bids, 4 bids on the house. It would have put the price. The market would dictate the price and put it back to where it's supposed to be.
Interesting.
The price when a home goes on the market is just the marketing price. That's just the price we're putting out to see where we can catch the bait. If it's undervalued, it will get bid up to where it should be. If it's overvalued, it will sit.
And I guess that's the slight inefficiency, right? Is that if it's underlisted, it will get bid up to the market price.
But that perspective right there for sellers is really hard to understand, because they go, well, what if we could have got more? We could have got more.
So we could fix a lot about the housing market in this kind of standoff between buyers and sellers if sellers are just more willing to list below their expectations, because then in the upshot, they could get more than they want, but then it might just sell at that price, right? And then they'll be annoyed for a second.
It will sell faster.
It will sell faster.
And that's the thing. It's like, do you want to be on the market for the next 90 days, or do you want this, or do you want to be closing in your next house?
Yeah, I mean, I
that's
think
where the why matters, because some will be like, I could sit here for 6 months. I could care less.
So what you're describing is the fundamental problem in the housing market right now. Is what's the bid ask, the bid ask spread, right? So buyers are willing to bid this, sellers are asking this, and in an efficient market, they should come together and the market should equilibrate, and then this transactions go up. We have this bid ask spread right now, and you see it with like the builders. They don't play really in the same market, really. Like builders have their own market. And what builders are doing is like they're just giving a 4.8% mortgage rate buy down. They're cutting the price 12%, and because they just want
You just need to move it.
to move the home.
Yep.
And they're kind of telling you like what the market clearing price is, but then a seller doesn't view it that way. Now, you said certain segment of sellers is just trial balloon, seeing what percentage is that.
I don't have that data.
But like, do you have a gut instinct? Like,
It's not that much of a percent, but
like
when you're
you're
looking at these higher home prices, right? We're not in the first time home buyer price range. That's where you see it more.
like luxury.
Yeah, a little higher luxury. They'll go, I'll sell my home if you can get me $1 million. I'm like, well, it might only be $850. Give me $1 million, I'll sell it.
I see. So they're just not serious.
Right. That's why the why matters. And as an
I see.
agent,
I see.
that should be the most important thing. Because the worst thing, if you're a good agent, you're calling your seller weekly, and the worst thing to do is give them, hey, we got nothing. We got nothing.
That's so interesting.
It comes down to the training. So to your point, though, on the buy side, buyers feel like they will offend people or sellers if they make an offer that's too far below ask, which could be true. But I would say make it.
Make it.
Make the offer.
Because you don't know.
You have no idea. They could be like, yep, and that also gives the agent data to go back to the seller to help them get the price improvement that they need.
Like a written offer. Like we have an offer.
Look, we have an offer and it's $50,000 less than what we're listed at. Nope, I'm not selling. Okay, boom. Next week comes around. Hey, we got another offer. It's $45,000 less than what we're asking. Oh, okay. Well, now that's 2. So now we have 2 data points. I don't know. I'm going to wait. Next one comes in. Hey, we got an offer. Now it's $75,000 less than what you wanted. Oh, shit. Well, maybe we can go back to those people and tell them, oh, well, yeah, they all were offering $50,000. Now they're offering $60,000 less because you waited. It becomes this game, and it's the ego trying to win.
So what you're describing, I think this is fascinating. So what could make the housing market more efficient? A, sellers are more willing to list below what they want.
It takes a good agent to educate them on why they need to do that, because it's the exact opposite of what they want to do.
Conventional perspective.
Right. In the seller's market, we're not in that anymore.
Right.
Things have shifted, and it's a training. I tell agents, your skill is how close to the right price you can get. If you're $50,000 overpriced, then we have $50,000 worth of skill we need to increase in your conversation.
That's interesting. Something I don't think about on a typical basis is how the home is priced. So you have comps, 90-day comps, things like that, right?
Yeah, but I got a better view. The sun comes in a little better, and I've been here for 20 years, and my house is better.
Is that what they say?
Absolutely, everything.
I saw my neighbors sell for 3 years ago.
Yeah, they sold 3 years ago, and my grass is greener.
So then, what do you? Okay, so they come at you with that cognitive dissonance of like no. So then, how do you respond to that?
Well, you got to show them the other home. So let's look at this other home. They actually redid their kitchen last year, and your kitchen's 10 years old. Let's look at this. They had put a brand new fence in. Your fence is falling apart. You just have to. You gotta be. You can't be afraid to have the real conversation that needs to be had, because we all have a bias when we own something. This is actually a cognitive bias that can be in anything that we own. We automatically overvalue it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a car, could be a coin, could be a jacket. Pair of sunglasses. I don't care what it is. You own it. It's worth more automatically. But the price is what the market's willing to pay.
Wow. I this is really interesting, because if someone can figure out how to crack this, like what you're talking about is very helpful, on a one-on-one basis, like a good agent coaches the seller, right? But if we can get just more globally, I'm just viewing macro housing market. If we can get more sellers to list reasonably, but then get more buyers to submit offers.
That's it.
Then you close that bid-ask spread. More offers is more information, right? And then the seller comes in more realistically, which encourages more buyers also, right? Sometimes buyers sees the overpriced house, they're like, no way. So honestly, I think that's if that can be solved, the housing market becomes way more efficient, prices correct more quickly, and then sale transactions rebound.
It's just tough because every home's so different. Every home is so different. You could be in
Sure.
the
older house, older
home. This one's got a new roof. This one doesn't. This one has updated AC, new electrical, new this. They did the floors. They did all this stuff. The way there's so much. People can walk into a home and just be like, I love this house. I love this neighborhood. I love the way the sun comes in this window, or the way the color, like
and then they're willing to,
so it's not like a car where like cars are very like that car's pretty much that car, and that,
right.
the product is the same.
Or a home builder community.
Right.
Each house is identical.
Yeah, right.
But then if you go to a more like Old Northeast here in St. Pete, or you go to some other,
as homes age, they separate from being alike, because maybe this one's AC went out and this one's didn't. Maybe they updated the kitchen and this one didn't. So as a home ages, each seller starts to put their own taste on it. And maybe they planned on being there for 20 years and they put $100,000 into their backyard. Doesn't mean that now that it's worth that in the price upgrade, but they think that it is. And maybe it adds $40,000 of value to the home, but the other one next door doesn't have that. But you have to calculate that into your price. And as an agent, you've never seen a backyard like that. So how much value do you put on it?
Wow.
So there's so many nuances into it, and that's why we have third-party appraisals.
Sure.
So it is nuanced. And you figure out how to crack it, you'd be a billionaire.
I agree with you. It is nuanced, but there must be some way to improve it. Zillow has a funny new feature. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like, so you know how they have this estimate?
Yeah.
They have a new feature,
which is an agent's nightmare.
Well, this might be this next feature might actually help agents. Maybe it tells you on the listing. It's like gives it offer strategies. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
And it'll say like a strong offer would be X, a competitive offer would be Y, a weak offer would be Z.
I don't know if that's going to help us or hurt us.
Well, I was in Lakeland 2 days ago filming some shorts up in Lakeland. Lakeland, Polk County has the most inventory of any place in Florida. It's up to like 5,500 homes on the market. Before the pandemic, there was like 2,000.
Wow.
It's insane. But there was a house that was listed for $355, and you look on the Zillow listing, and then the first thing it says is competitive offer $330, or strong offer it says strong offer $330, 90% chance of being accepted, or something like that.
And on Zillow,
it says that on the Zillow listing, and I was like, is this Zillow's way of getting some of these sellers to like? I don't know. What would that do to a seller? Like they see and they look at their Zillow listing, they listed at $355, and then Zillow's telling someone looking that you could offer $330 and there's a 90% chance of getting accepted. Would that piss the seller off so much that they would just like, I'm going to delist it? Or would that be like...
Well, no. So in that case...
Or would they be like, oh, okay, maybe that is the price. Bless you.
Excuse me. I'm allergic to Zillow.
I feel like what percentage...
Well, you want to know why?
Yeah. Tell me.
They're reselling our data back to us.
Oh, the MLS data.
We paid to have access to the MLS. We upload sellers' information. Zillow then takes that, puts another agent on the listing, and will sell it, that lead that comes through their page, to someone else. It's crazy. This is where I will give props to homes.com.
Okay.
Because they make sure that the agent who lists the home is the one getting the lead.
Oh, interesting.
Where the people get this wrong on Zillow, you go to Zillow and there's a little page like schedule is showing. You're not getting the listing agent. You're getting the agent whoever paid for the ad spot on Zillow, and now it's just another random agent.
That's right.
That's coming.
So you can see the listing agent's information.
Yeah, it's there, but on the advertising and the way that it's positioned of like reach out for more information, that's not going to the listing agent, that's going to some random.
And then you're saying homes.com
actually
has the actual listing.
Yeah, and they're trying to push it needs to get more traction, but they're doing a better job at making sure that agents are getting the leads that they deserve, because you work so hard to get that listing, and then Zillow takes it and sells that information to someone else who can then run off with it. That is interesting. In the realtor world, Zillow is not our friend.
The Zillow is not your friend, but
because on the reverse, we go to a seller and we ask them what they think their house is worth. They go, "Oh, well, this estimate says 600," and you're like, "I'm just thinking 550."
Oh, so it's overinflated.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it when it's under, because then I get to make their day.
I see. Okay, so that new feature where it's like strong offers $330 would be a good thing.
Yeah,
but that's really interesting. Zillow's business model is interesting. So they make most of their revenue from basically realtors paying for leads, right? Like I think it's their premier agent program. So like they make most of their revenue through a realtor saying, "I want to be that person on that listing."
They get like the lead box.
The lead box, and then they get the call.
Yep.
Like that realtor gets the call. And how much? Do you have any idea how much realtors pay for that?
It's a couple $1,000s a month.
Wow.
Mhm.
And so then you have like you have priority placement, and you just get.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many realtors actually do that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a good handful. It's like a stigma in the business too. Some people will pride themselves that they don't need to buy internet leads.
Sure.
You know, it's like an extra crown you get to wear, I guess.
To pay
Yeah,
for
I don't know.
leads,
It's weird.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a joke in Florida that if you get pulled over, the cops will ask you for your driver's license or real estate license because everyone has one, right? But
can I just talk about that?
Yeah.
So I've lived here almost a year, and I've lived all over the U.S., New York, Massachusetts, Texas, Tennessee, right? I've never seen so many people involved in real estate as here in Florida. So obviously there's realtors, but I'm the amount of people who just flip homes on the side is insane. I'll just go out to dinner, sit at the bar, and start talking to the person next to me, and they just have like 3 flips going on at once. But that's not what they're like a software engineer,
right?
But then they have 3 flips going on at once. I'm like, how many people here are actually involved in real estate? It seems almost like a third of the population.
It's a huge part of our market in general, not just the real estate, like the market. You think of all the contractors, home inspectors, this, that, whatever, like home service people. There is that's a large part of the industry here in Florida.
I think the stat from the NAR was 25% of Florida's GDP.
I believe that.
Residential real estate.
I believe that. You are the data man. I love having you here.
Yeah,
I love having you here. You're not so just, and then I want to change topics to talk about space for a minute. But before we get there, let's talk about St. Pete's real estate data quickly. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I always, for my office, I always pull this data, and this is Pinellas County. Now, this is only single family. No, this data I'm about to give you is single family homes, townhomes, and condos. So in March, there was 1,500 closings, which is down 3% from last March on single family homes, townhomes, condos. Paid in cash stayed almost about the same, but a 4% drop. 723 of those were paid in cash. New pending sales, about the same as last year. 1,725 compared to 1,716. This is where things get interesting. New listings on the market, 2,600 on market, and pending inventory is 1,900. So in the month of March, that's a spread of a little over 700 homes that are added to the inventory.
What's the difference between new pending sales and pending inventory? They seem like they're kind of saying the same thing. So new pending sale is just something just went pending. And then is pending inventory how many homes are still pending? How long does a house remain pending in general?
Hold on, I'm going to tell you that. Okay, so here's what the new pending sales. I'm going to give you the exact definition so we're not botching this. Okay, new pending sales is the number of listed properties that went under contract during the month.
Okay.
And so pending inventory is going to be how many they could have went pending in the previous month and are still pending and not closed.
Oh.
So that's why the difference is like 180 homes.
Yeah.
So it could be they had a 45-day closing or something like that.
Are most closings, how quickly?
30 days, 30 to 45 days.
30 to 40. Okay.
Yep. And cash can be 2 weeks. And inventory for single family homes, townhomes, and condos is 7,888 homes. And this is as of end of March, which is up 30% from March of 2024. Now, a large number of that, because this is townhomes and condos included, is condos. If we separate it out, condo market right now in Pinellas County, if you own a condo and you're trying to sell, I will tell you right now, you need to price it extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
There's so much inventory.
What are we talking like if you think it's worth 500?
15% below that.
Whoa, okay. So if you think it's 500, you got to go like 420 or 430.
Yeah. If you want to sell it, quick.
If you want to sell it.
If you want to sell it.
It's a funny thing. It's again funny you have to ask that question.
Yeah.
Like, do you actually want to sell it?
Right. Because some don't.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I just want to get 500. Okay, I don't know. And maybe 15% is aggressive. Maybe 10 would be okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just in the boat of like, we really need to change the narrative on that, especially in the condo market.
That's interesting.
There's so many condos.
One Beach Drive.
Yep.
I know that. So to me, that's like the best location, I think, in St. Pete. I don't know if you would disagree with that. One Beach. So
it's subjective.
People who don't know, Beach Drive is like the main drag
Yep.
downtown St. Pete, where all the restaurants are. close to the pier. One Beach Drive is probably built in the 70s, right? It's like a couple hundred units.
Mm-hmm.
I toured a couple of the units in there. Some of them are amazing.
If they're updated, yeah.
If they're updated, amazing. But I'm seeing some of those listings in that property, the sellers are cutting the price like 40%.
40?
There was one listing, they bought it for $720 in May 2020. So even before the pandemic run up, they bought it for $720,000. I believe it was a 3-bed, 2-bath. They then listed it for $1.1 million in 2023. The property just sold for like $500,000. So they cut it 55% from their original list. It ended up selling for about 20%.
You're gonna have to show me this.
I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
It ended up selling for 20% below the 2020 purchase. And the issue this building is they're having a big condo assessment. I think
it's huge. That's what's going on with a lot of them.
And so I think that unit had $2,400 a month HOA fees.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what I'm also seeing is I'm actually seeing, like, it seems like this condo correction is happening kind of fast for certain listings. Like, I'm seeing certain listings in downtown St. Pete condos. Sometimes I've seen like $250 for a 1-bedroom, and you look at it and you're like, that seems okay.
But then you got a $1,000 a month HOA.
But then you got a $1,000 a month HOA, and then you can't make money renting it out because of the HOA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost as if on some of those condos, the price has just got to go.
But yeah, until they figure out like the reserves and other things with the funding, I mean, the assessments just until those get paid off and fixed. I mean, it's unfortunate what happened to the sellers that have them. But
so let me ask you that question, because I've wondered this. So like that $2,400 a month Beach Drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
HOA. Is that an HOA fee that a buyer should think like that's perpetually going to be the HOA fee? Or like, is that for 3 years or 4 years, that's going to be HOA
so that's
fee?
where
and then we're going to see the HOA fees come down after these buildings. I see some people say that after the buildings have the renovations, the HOA fees will come down. I see other people who say, not so fast. Like, they don't ever really come down, is what I see other people say.
Well, I think because of this we're in uncharted territory, right? Because this is kind of crazy what's going on with the condo fees. You would have to look at the meeting minutes and figure out how much of that has gone. What's the percent increase over the last 24 months on the HOA fee, and what is the driving factor behind that? Is it insurance costs? Because if it's insurance costs, I don't think the insurance company is going to drop their prices. So yeah, probably not going to come down that. Is it a built-in assessment? Because then it could be. Because sometimes instead of hitting you with the $25,000 assessment, they'll bake it into the condo fee over the next 24 months, 3 years. So it's kind of like a payment thing because they need money. They got to do the inspections. They got to do repairs. They got to do whatever they can, or everyone has to leave.
Right.
So you got to get into the meeting minutes on the building, and this is where the buildings that were well funded are okay,
right,
and the ones that weren't are really getting hit.
Right. That's really important information for people to know.
Yeah.
Again, I know my mom's looking at buying a condo. She was looking in Clearwater. Yeah, she was looking at the HOH fee. She was like, "Is this gonna go up? Is this gonna like go down?" Like,
yeah, you got to.
She was talking to the realtor. Like, the realtor didn't really know. Like,
yeah.
So
I told you, not everyone's the same, dude.
Yeah.
The bar to entry is low.
Be a realtor.
Yeah, it's not hard. Yeah, 63-hour exam.
I think there's in Florida, was it like 200 something thousand?
I can't remember the number. I should know it. I just know that's why it's important to be.
It's almost like there should be a separate, like, so you have the license from the NAR or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
There should be a separate license. Like, if you meet another threshold, right, there should be a separate qualification that a realtor could put next to their name, and then you'd be like, oh, you're a Michelin star realtor,
yeah.
right? Like,
there are other certifications that you can get and things like that, but the public doesn't know. You know, it's an alphabet soup behind your name. Does it mean anything?
Sure.
Right.
CCIM,
GRI, all blah, 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 blah. And what matters is that, shameless plug, if you're at Keller Williams and you're well trained.
There you go.
Cheers.
you run, well, some people watching this will know.
Yep.
Other people who watch it might not know, but you run the Keller Williams office.
I do.
In
Yeah.
St. Pete.
Yeah. We have over 200 agents here, and all of them are badass.
It's pretty impressive.
We could get into all that, but dude, back to, because this is Talkin St. Pete, and thank you for everyone getting through all of our data stuff, but it's important, right?
Yeah,
it's important, dude. And overall, St. Pete's a kick-ass place to live.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the lifestyle here is probably one of the best you're going to find.
The best. Name another place where you have access to this much waterfront.
San Diego?
Yeah.
I would say like St.
I don't know.
St. Pete reminds me of San Diego.
Okay.
I feel like San Diego is kind of like St. Pete's like upside.
I'm not gonna argue. I never.
From a real estate perspective, San Diego's like a beach town, right? But then it's like has like a tech scene, and obviously real estate there is crazy.
Yeah,
it reminds me a lot of San Diego, but there's not a lot of places, right?
Like the fact that we have Vinoy.
Yeah,
we can go right out to the water's edge. Can't build there. The beaches, I love it here.
And right now, this is again my first spring here, but I think the weather right now is perfect. It's like high of 85. Spring breaks over, like the snowbirds have left, so it's like quieter. Like I feel like this is the perfect time of year to be here.
Yeah, and texting, there's more and more tech coming here. You know, we just had 2 other developers, AI developers, on the show, and I've been fascinated with happening in the AI space.
Yeah.
You know, and how people are using that in marketing and development and all kinds of stuff. You know, I just gave a speech at the Mahaffey Theater 2 weeks ago on quantum leadership, and I've only been able to link quantum mechanics and leadership because of the use of AI, which is fascinating, the parallels that are there.
So you were telling me about what quantum leadership is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe the average person might not know what that is. So what is it?
It's leading from a place more of energy and understand. Like there's some concepts in quantum mechanics that are just bizarre, that are not traditional, but they're proven in science. Mm-hmm. On stage, the one that I talked about, because it's kind of the easiest to first grasp your mind around, is entanglement. And the way I describe that is, I opened the idea with, we've all had that moment where we've thought of somebody and then they texted us. Mm. You could say that's entanglement. And so in quantum mechanics, entanglement means that 2 particles will mirror each other identically no matter the distance between them, which defies Einstein's theory of relativity, because Einstein says that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. Well, if I have a particle on Pluto and a particle on Earth and they mirror each other instantly, that's traveling faster than the speed of light. There is no travel. It's instantaneous. So we're everywhere all at once? Is that what that's saying? Exactly. So it's just like from a leadership standpoint, I'm saying, how do I build an entangled community where we're connected? Mm-hmm. We're all resonating on frequency and energy, because that is what's happening at the quantum level. People say like, oh, that's when people go, oh, energy is woo-woo. If you go study quantum mechanics, which is the fundamental fabric, the things that make up the universe, it's all energy and frequency. It's definitely not woo-woo. I mean, my first thought is New York City. You step off the train in New York City, you feel the energy, you feel it, right? And then you're like transformed as a person, right? Like you're like, wow, I gotta work hard. I gotta go. I gotta do it. Yeah. Our mutual friend, Dan, he actually just went to New York City with his girlfriend, and he was telling me about how like the service in New York City is just ridiculous. Like everyone is like on point. You gotta be the best. Smiling. Yep. Everyone's the best. Everyone is the best. And the reason they're the best is because they're around people who are the best. And there's just something about the cumulative energy of that area, right? Well, if you're not the best, I can replace you like that. You can get replaced and you'll get eaten up and chewed out. Yep. Right? It costs $5,000 a month to rent an apartment. Right? Right? Like, so you better be the best. So to me, that's proof of what you're saying. Energy totally matters. So Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his book, The Tipping Point. Yeah. Saying that people adapt to their area like extremely quickly. And his example was talking about heart doctors. And maybe a doctor gets moved to an area because they're known for the way that they do surgery. But the minute they move to another hospital, another area, they will immediately pick up the tactics and everything that was going in that environment, like without a delay. Wow. Crazy. And in terms of picking up the tactics of like, it's a different way to do the surgery? Right, or, yes. Okay, like yes. Like maybe they were hired because they do it this way, but the minute they go into a new environment, they start doing it the same way that everyone else is doing it there. Yeah. So that speaks to humans being having minds that are malleable. Yep. Yeah, I just like you step off of New York, you feel the energy. Boom, you immediately change into your New York. Also, if you go to Miami,
immediately there's like this shift in energy. I don't even know if that's a good shift in Miami, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's so
Yeah.
true. And then, you get off the plane in California, it's like a different thing.
Yeah. So there's this energy concept that's happening at the quantum level, right?
Yeah.
There's energy. And so I talk about leading with the heart, right? Because if I'm looking at us, if like there's some theories out there that we have little quantum processors in our brain. But the problem in quantum is that it's hard for us to really measure it because of decoherence, which you can call noise, right? The quantum is so fragile for us to see it that we have to make it so quiet in order for us to see it. And the way we do that is making it at sub-zero temperatures. That's why quantum computers have to be extremely cold, because they're the coldest place in the universe. There's no outside energy or heat that's causing decoherence for us to observe what's happening.
So sorry, the outside energy somehow changes the picture.
We'll pick up on that instead. It's that fragile. It's that delicate. They say it knocks it out of the quantum, right? Because we can't observe it anymore. It doesn't mean it's not there.
Wow.
We just can't observe it, which then opens another thing of why quantum leadership is the observer effect. Observing a particle changes the way it behaves. The conscious looking at it changes it. Having a measurement device looking at it changes the way it behaves. And we've been able to prove this like time and time again with the dual slit experiment.
So my first thought when you said that was just like a boss observing someone who works for them. But
immediately changes their behavior.
And that changes their behavior. But you're even saying this has been proven in a more subtle way where like if a particle is being observed, it doesn't consciously know it's being observed.
Or does it?
Or does it? But then somehow you're saying the behavior changes.
Yeah. And so that goes, when you are able to observe your thoughts as a leader, you automatically change your own behavior. So my thing with quantum leadership is we're always focused on what we're doing. And I say, in order to be a great leader, you need to focus on who you're being. That's the fundamental. Wow. That's the core.
Yeah.
And there's many other concepts that I've been going off of this. I'm going to be launching something coming soon here in the next month regarding all this. But it's fascinating when you start to find the parallels between the thing and the study that makes up the fabric of the universe and leadership.
I think you might be onto something, Ryan. I think like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't totally understand.
No, it's okay, and I didn't do a great job.
But no, I think you did. It's a complex topic, but just what I'm getting is like energy matters. The people you're around matter, and then if you are in a position of leadership, even more the people who are around matter. Because how do we get this to brass tacks? Like if you're a leader and you want to be a better leader, right? Like you have to be around other leaders.
You got to watch. You got to be around other leaders, and the people you're leading, you need to be aware of their energy. In order to be aware of their energy, you need to be aware of your own. So it really comes back to, in order to be a quantum leader, you need to practice meditation.
Okay.
You need to be in control of. You need to be able to witness and have the awareness of your own conscious mind and what that means. It's because the way I opened up my talk, and it was I had the people that came up to me after was like, I had a guy come up to me and share with me how he had a near-death experience, and this really resonated, and people like the conversations after were crazy. But a lady came up to me and was like, the picture that you had on the screen, I want that because I want it as an art piece. And what it was a silhouette of a head, but pieces of puzzle pieces all over it, and like light shining through it. And my message there was that our ego is why we identify as human. Ego is what attaches to things. You weren't born as Nick.
Right.
You're only that because it was a name that was given to you, and now your ego is attached to it.
Right.
And so who are you before you're that? Like at the core. And so when you sit in silence long enough,
contemplating that,
you need to find self.
Sure.
And it gets deep. It gets like, I'm getting kind of goosebumpy.
Yeah, you can't, and then you want to come up with a word to describe it, but it's not an accurate description. Actually, it's kind of somewhat undescribable, right? It's more just like the knowledge of like awareness, right? Like
where is awareness, right? And one of the fundamental questions is look for the one who's looking.
I used to watch this guy on YouTube, Muji. He's like this big Asian, East Asian, like thought leader, and he would always talk about that, like who's the observer was like his big thing. Yeah. It's just watching energy, like, because when you're sitting here observing, are you aware that you have a tingling sensation in your fingers? You do now, right? But that's always there, but you're not even aware of it. And that's the principle you just described. Awareness. The observation of it changes. Also creates.
Yes. So it's very deep, but in order for us to be great leaders, we have to pull back all the things.
I think it's really interesting because, you know, I think you're very successful. I'm very successful. And like, I think there's always like a desire to improve, right? And to like, you know, tap into something deeper and more meaningful. And, you know, to actually get there is difficult though, right? You know,
it's a practice. It's a continuous practice because we're human, and the human experience comes in and hijacks us all the time.
And by human experience, you're talking about ego, or you're talking about just being
emotion, tired. You have this physical body that's doing things all day, and it sometimes needs rest, and you're not your best always, or something irritating you, and you're not even aware of it. There's just so much. So you know, that's why the practice of awareness, just like going to the gym to build your muscles of your body, you got to build the muscle of your mind.
Sure.
To be able to keep that awareness.
Yeah, it makes sense. Again, I think another important thing is like having some type of mission, right? Like some type of place, your purpose, like place you're going towards. Because if you have that, well, then when you go through those trials and tribulations, you might sway one way or the other, right? But you'll have this point to come back to. Whereas if you don't have that purpose, or I don't even know if it's so much you have it or you don't have it. You haven't like tapped into it recently. Like it's then so much easier, right? To then fall further to the left or to the right when you feel egoic or tired or, you know, whatever.
I would call that your big why.
Okay.
Right.
I like that.
We need to know our big why. So that, because that's the driving force behind everything to keep us going on days that we don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Right? If we don't have that, we don't have purpose. So why are we doing anything? Right? Why are you doing the app? Why are you creating videos?
Yeah.
It's tied back to something. And if we spend a few minutes with each other and I asked why 7 times, we would get to the core of it.
Right.
But here's a little bit of a deep thing, and I've tied it all together, is that I guarantee you, Nick, that your why is attached to love.
Oh, okay.
Because
that's a big one.
Everything is attached to love. That quantum energy that we haven't been able to put science to is love. So that's why they say the only thing
love of
everything, the love for life, the love for creation, the love for data,
truth,
the love for truth.
I'm gonna say for me, it's truth. Like I want to show truth. I want to show what's actually happening. I don't like, my biggest thing I hate is like some type of narrative that's wrong. This was even the case. Like I got my start on data, funny enough, writing baseball articles. I think I might have told you about this.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring it up, but I let it. Yeah, I'm glad you did.
It's kind of funny. So I started writing baseball articles in 2018, 2019. Got paid $10 an article. And I was such a nerd. Still am a nerd, but like looking at baseball players and understanding them statistically. And when like people would think this baseball player was good and he wasn't good, that would bug me.
You're like, the data says he's not good.
Yeah. And then conversely, when a guy was struggling, but then the data said he was good, I was like, he's good. And I wanted to show that. And so I've always had this desire to kind of like maybe disprove like if, you know, the conventional narrative that's wrong. And actually like the book Moneyball and the movie Moneyball actually has like inspired me a lot about like the revolution in baseball statistics and the Oakland Athletics general manager, Billy Beane, and you know, how he completely changed the game in terms of how baseball is analyzed. And for me, I'm trying to do that with the housing market. But that's, to your point, that's kind of just like the outgrowth of the core desire of like exposing truth and, you know, for me, exposing truth and giving people a means to access it. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to know that, right?
Yeah.
And when we get to a certain level, like it becomes ever more powerful.
Yeah.
To unlock in the next level, because we all hit our natural ceiling somewhere where we're just like, why am I doing any of this?
Right.
So yeah, no, it's deep, but it's powerful. It's moving, and it comes back to like a collective consciousness of we're all humans on this big ball of water flying through space, right? And so we gotta, our businesses and as leaders should do collective good for the humanity of the planet, not just for the sake of wanting more. And that ties in beautifully to, you know, I'm in a training yesterday and I'm a little bored and I'm sitting on chat because I have way too many conversations with chat. I go down rabbit holes. And for some reason...
Is ChatGPT your personal therapist?
I don't use it so much for that. More like just to unravel and explore ideas deeper.
Sure.
And find parallels in things. I'm always trying to find that. And I'm been fascinated with space from a young age. I built a telescope at the age of 7 that was 4 feet long, and you could see craters inside of craters. And so the James Webb telescope was launched a few years ago. For those that don't know, I think it's 1 million miles from Earth, and it's one of the most powerful telescopes we ever.
This telescope itself can see 1 million miles from Earth?
No, it's located a mile.
So it's a satellite. It's on a satellite in space.
Yep. No, it's not. It is itself a satellite.
The telescope is a satellite.
Yes.
And was launched.
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and it's already 1 million miles out.
Yep.
Wow.
It didn't even start to open and process stuff until it was 1 million miles out. Can you fact check me on that quick? Because I'm pretty sure it's 1 million. Anyhow, 5 days ago. So I'm sitting in this training yesterday, and I'm like, all right, I've heard this already. It's after lunch. I'm a little tired. Let me stimulate my mind. I, for some reason, thought about the James Webb telescope, and I was like, I wonder what have been the major discoveries of this thing that we took all this time and money to launch. And it turns out, crazy that I had the thought, 6 days ago from the time that we're recording this, an article that came out that they discovered a planet 124 light years away. So in space terms, not that far, right? It's not.
Do we know how much a light year is? Is that like
well, if you're traveling at the speed of light, whatever the speed of light is, and then times that by a year, that's the distance. Okay, so
in space that's not far, but for us that's like really far.
That's really far.
It can't be seen from Earth.
No.
Okay.
No. And the reason this telescope's so powerful is because it's away from all, like, it's not seen through all the space junk. Like, has a clearer vision because it's so far away. And it has shields to block the light from the sun, so it's really isolated. It's cooled to a certain temperature, all this stuff. Anyhow, it discovers a planet 120, I think it's 124 light years away, that has a chemical composition in it that, as scientists know it, are only put off by a biological plankton, essentially. And they're saying that they're 99.7% sure that this means that there's life on that planet.
Wow.
So this opens up, this changes a lot of, if this is true, right? If our 0.3%.
So the telescope looked into the planet.
Yep.
Really close, down to the surface.
Down to its atmosphere.
Okay.
Because there's gases that are being put off by this. If this is true, then there's a 0.3% of air in this plankton. The way the light signals come through, it's like a snowflake. Every chemical gives a different picture. Yeah. And so when this planet gets in front of its sun and the light shines through the atmosphere, then the James Webb telescope is picking that up. And they've ran this multiple times. Scientists don't put things out unless they're pretty sure. And that's why they didn't say 100%, because they don't know of any other way for this type of gas to be made, but they're triple, quadruple checking that it couldn't be some other way that this gas was made in the universe. So as we know it right now.
So the organic matter creates the gas.
Yes.
And so the gas's presence proves potentially that there's organic matter and life there. So
it's in a Goldilocks zone. It's in the right spot to where like it's all these things. And it just fascinates me that this is a new discovery. You won't hear about it on mainstream media unless you're a little nerdy and you dive into it, right? But it starts to open the mind of some of the beliefs of what we've had. Religious texts and other things go way back. And, so I'm fascinated by that when I'm thinking about quantum, because if we're all interconnected of life, then that means we're also interconnected with that life that's 124 light years away.
There's a lot of interesting things about what you just said.
Many.
You just reminded me of something kind of about space that's always interested me, is the fact when you look up and you see a star, you're actually seeing what that star looked like thousands of years ago, right? Mm-hmm. That's how long it took, the light year, right?
Right. Yeah. So you look, that light signature that we're getting is essentially 124 years old.
It's great that we could just answer that question through that example. But that's really interesting to me, right? Like, you're looking at something that happened 124 years ago, right? But you also got me thinking about another thing with like this new discovery, is like something I've been talking to my friends about recently, is like mind expansion, like pushing the boundaries a little bit of your mind, right? And like thinking big, and like thinking in terms of like what would be a goal of yours that seems unattainable, like it actually seems somewhat unattainable right now. But then like if you had to picture something in your head, like where you would be in 5 years, like what would it be? And it's not so much about a plan. It's more about like a vision, and it should feel unattainable, but then look at it.
You're spot on.
And I'm like, okay, like I've been practicing that lately, and I've been talking to my friends about that lately and what for them those things are. And I think that's like almost something you can practice, right? To like expand your mind about like what's possible. And what you just said made me think of that, because like that's they just found something that we didn't necessarily think was possible, right? And it is possible. So what else, isn't possible, but is possible,
Well, if we live in a world of infinite possibilities, a universe of infinite possibilities, anything should be possible, right? Because things of what we understand, like in the quantum world, it doesn't listen to gravity, but everything else does. So what is that? There's things that are possible that shouldn't be possible, like the entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Einstein called something spooky action at a distance.
He acknowledged it.
Yeah.
Serendipity, kind of like all that.
Yeah. Didn't like it.
He couldn't prove it.
Yeah, because to him, gravity was something that you have to account for. And in quantum level, you don't. So, but what you said there is so profound for the two people that are still listening. There's more, but
gonna be more than two.
No, I know. I'm joking because we've gone down such a rabbit hole.
200,000 people.
Yeah. All because we have unlimited thinking here. The world's listening to us right now. You have to expand your mind and then observe it back to quantum, right? Leadership, observing the thoughts and expanding removes your limiting beliefs of what's possible, and then it becomes possible. And what I always tell people in the agent world, if you think you can't, you're right.
That's right.
If you think you can, you're also right.
That's right.
So I love that you do that exercise, because if you can visualize it and see it, now you just got to work backwards and figure it out.
Right.
It's a powerful exercise.
Yeah, in some ways, like removing the limiter is most of what you have to do. I think a lot of people are hard workers, right? A lot of people like have passions and motivations, but a lot of people are limited, in terms of what they think they can do.
You want to know why? Because they might be hard workers, but they're hard workers for the wrong thing.
Yeah, right. As in maybe it's not something
that's not the passion.
It's not the passion, or it's not the right point in time for them to be working on that, right?
Or they have a limiting belief to say that they can't do it.
It's like doing something I slip into this a lot sometimes too. It's like if I'm stressed or whatever, I don't know what to do with the app or the channel, or there's something going on, I'll just start doing what I know, right? And like what I feel comfortable doing, maybe bury myself in a spreadsheet for 6 hours. And it's like, that's my way of like, I can control this, I can do this, right? And I've had the benefit that actually produces things for me. But like, as I've grown, I'm not spending as much time, 6 hours a day in a spreadsheet, right? Because there's other tasks I need to do. But then sometimes I'll still default to that. So I think what some people do is when it's insecure, when they don't know what to do, they'll just default to the programming of what they know how to control.
Pattern.
I think control is such a big thing. We all thirst for control. And if you truly want to like step out and do something crazy and amazing, right? You got to give up that like idea of control, because especially once you start gaining success, like it's going to take on a life of its own, and then it's going to push you in ways that you would never be pushed. So, for me, I actually have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And
that awareness is great.
I have it, like diagnosed with it. And, through being an entrepreneur and like having my business, that's pushed me to do things I would have never, ever done, right? To counteract OCD.
So
right?
it's like it's fighting your own ability.
Perfectionism, right? What's the quickest way to cure perfectionism is to have your own business, right? Because you can't operate in a world of perfectionism. And so I think there's also that piece to it too, right? Like, someone might have OCD, or someone might just have a limiting belief from childhood or whatever. That's like such a hard thing kind of keeping them where they are. But then, yeah, for me at least, like operating my own business, YouTube channel, that allowed me to push through, right? Some of these things and gain experiences I would have never allowed myself to have, but because I cared so much about what I was doing and I was passionate about it, then it became worth it. And so I'm not even sure how that relates to what we were just saying.
No, but it's good.
But I think like there's so much about it where like everyone has their own path, and I'm a big believer like people are called to do things, and people are called to, have a mission and a purpose. And for a while, for me, that was working for a company. Then it became not working for a company. Then it became this. And I don't totally know what's going to be in the future. But I think another thing is like we constantly have to be aware of like what the calling is in the moment. Sometimes it might change and require us to do something else. So,
and that's the intuition. And I think back to quieting the mind. You can't hear intuition if your mind's a rock concert.
That's right. It's drowned out.
It's like hearing a whisper. This is fascinating. I talk about this in my talk. I pulled so much. I spent 6 weeks every weekend, like 8 hours a day for the weekends of 6 weeks, to come up with this talk that I had to. And I my original talk was probably a PhD thesis on quantum leadership.
Yeah, sure.
And I read it to one of my friends, and he was like, "Ryan, you cannot, like, I'm normally with you, but that is way too deep." And I'm like, "Okay." So I simplified, but I found out so much information I found fascinating. And one of the things I found out is that your heart sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? Well, and then you find cases where like you pick up, we talked about energy. Your heart in a theoretical terms could be a little quantum processor that's actually picking up on energy because it has a 60 times more powerful electromagnetic field than any other organ in the body. So our hearts are in resonance with each other right now. And then that's sending signals to my brain. And there's people who think that, well, that's where intuition comes from. But even though there's more signals going to it, this is the rock concert, your mind. And this is a whisper. So you have to quiet the mind down to hear the intuition.
So you're saying the heart drives the bus.
The heart drives the bus, but sometimes we're the rowdy kids on the bus.
Too much in the head.
Yep.
I totally believe that. Yeah.
And so that's where, like, with AI and being able to explore the quantum world of how it works at the biology of our bodies, will be fascinating. The discoveries that we'll be able to find of how we entangle with the energy in the world around us.
Yeah, it's very subtle, right? Like that's like the one word I'm thinking about.
It's a little nudge. It's not loud.
No, it's not. It's not loud, and it's like this thing where you take opportunities where they present themselves, right? You put yourself around the right people. Again, I keep coming back to people.
Yeah.
I think the people, I truly believe like you are the average of who you spend your time
with.
No,
you 100, not even, but
right?
like, dude, that's a truth.
Like, it's
that's
so
a truth.
Because what else would influence who you are, right? Like you said, the persona of Nick from a kid, like that was all put, like, and then, so, you have yourself internally, spirit, soul, but your human aspect, your ego, all this other stuff, your personality, it's largely just a function of what's around you.
Yeah.
Then your close relationships are like the most important thing.
Well, to your point about mind earlier, if you don't have a seed of thought or something to come in to ignite and light a new area of your mind as a possibility, you maybe not ever think of it if you're not exposed to it.
Yeah.
You don't have the even programming or you don't even know what you don't know. And I felt this at the talk. Two of the guys on stage were just beyond successful. One of the dudes was a billionaire, massive company. You could feel it. You could just feel it in his presence and the way he talked to you and just the energy that he carried. And I'm like, that was the first time where I really felt if I got to hang around that guy every day, my trajectory would be so much faster just from being in his presence than not.
And by being in his presence, you're picking up his energy.
Mm-hmm. Back to quantum leadership, right? And it's like, that's real. It's real. And
in some ways. So yeah, by being in his presence, you can learn certain technical things, right? But what you're really doing is you're observing. It's almost he's transferring the energy to you.
Yeah, it's radiating off. That's why and to your, but like negative energy is, I think, will stifle positive energy to the point of the media and why the fear mongering works so much better than positivity, because it probably takes 3 parts positivity to 1 part negativity to equal the same. I don't know the ratio. I'm making it up.
I think you're probably right. I mean, you sense that like if you're in a room with someone, right, who like just a downer, right, or like just
they could destroy the whole mood.
Or you like you suggest to someone like, hey, you're good at it. You could do this, right? And then they're like, no, like no, I can't, or all these reasons, blah blah blah. like the energy needs to be allowed to like play.
Yeah, play, because that's what we did as kids.
Yeah,
We play. The creativity. You in a spreadsheet is you playing.
it's so true.
And our art for all of us looks different. For some people, playing is grabbing a paintbrush. For some, it's going on a run or whatever. Like there's so many different ways that we play.
Yeah,
But play is how we create. And create, because there's a big controversy, I would say, right now with AI and creatives, right? Is a movie that the AI makes going to be as good as the movie that
no.
Steven Spielberg makes?
Well,
Why?
there is a human aspect to it. I can tell you why I think that first. Is because I observe it on YouTube. AI can't make good thumbnails. AI can't create good titles for YouTube videos.
Yeah.
It can't. Because it's always taking in what's already out there.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that has happened, it's over. So for instance, like one of my best skills beyond understanding data is knowing how to make a YouTube thumbnail and title. Like, and that determines 60 to 65% of the views is the thumbnail and title. And so I did a video, they got has 1.8 million views right now. It came out a month ago. It was about landlords in Florida having issues with vacant, empty homes, and the migrations dropped. And on the thumbnail, I literally worked on it for a week. I like opened it, looked at it, worked with my thumbnail designer, put it down, came back to it, worked on it myself. And by the end, I settled on, was me like out in the street. And then the yellow text said Florida Panic. And then there was a U-Haul. Like I put the U-Haul, we put a U-Haul there. And then the title was something like Landlords in Florida XYZ. I know I'm getting so technical right now.
No,
but by the fourth day, that video still had a 10% click-through rate, which is insane. So like the click-through rate is telling you off of how many people are served the video, the percentage that click on it. So if on the fourth day, 10% of people who are served it somewhere on their feed are clicking on it, that is amazing. And that when that happens, YouTube pushes it to more people.
Because it says it's working.
This is working. Because YouTube wants people to stay on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So if you deliver a thumbnail that they're intrigued at and click at, and then the content itself, you stay, that's like you're keeping people on YouTube. And I worked on and then it was like almost like a lightning strike, right? That and the video is doing amazing. It's my second best video ever now at this point. But I've seen now people on YouTube copying.
Your thing, yeah.
Everyone in real estate and YouTube copies my thumbnails and everything I do.
Because it works.
But it doesn't.
Not for them.
It doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
So that's my point. Like there is a certain quality. It's even hard to describe of being it's kind of like being an artist. Like
No, it's not. It is an artist.
You're creating something original, but you could then take the pieces and rearrange them, and somehow it doesn't work.
Yeah. So that goes into art. The art and creative piece will be the biggest fundamental challenge for AI and for humans. Like, and see, back to unlocking our mind and unlimited possibilities, to say that the AI will never is a dangerous word. So we can't say never.
Okay, I'll say never.
Right.
But
I think it will take us a long time. And the reason I think we could get there is back to, and I don't want to keep coming back to, but the quantum is so fascinating. And we're building quantum computers. And I'm not going to get into the technical because it talks about superposition and all these things. If you want to know how a quantum computer works, DM me and I'll talk and we'll nerd out about it. I might even call you. When AI and quantum computing are together, you now have an infinite, powerful machine tied to intelligence of every. Imagine when 90% of everything that humans know is powered by a quantum machine that takes no time to go through that info, and it can filter through unlimited possibilities, and now it's thinking on its own.
So I guess that's the key piece, right? Is the AI thinking? Is like ChatGPT thinking?
Is it that goes down to when does it become aware? That's when people start to freak out of like AI when it's aware of itself. That goes. Well, look for the one who's looking. Awareness. Can the AI become aware? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Like I'm not
but that would be, to me, I think that would be the piece. If it could actually think intuitively, then then you're essentially replicating a human brain.
But then, so I think it's going to be difficult because of how many inputs we have that's coming into the brain, right? Because it's not just the brain. Remember, the heart sends signals to the brain.
Right.
There's all these other pieces.
There's a gut
There's
thing.
a gut
that
thing
just doesn't look right. I couldn't tell you why it doesn't look right, but it doesn't.
Yeah, we have all these other inputs coming. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I mean, we could be on here forever.
So I have an interesting question for you. I don't know if we have to leave.
No, I love the way you said that too. I don't know. We're good. We're actually, we're good, right? Yeah.
We're good. I was thinking about what the bigger innovation was. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but let's hold off. The internet or AI? Like, what was the bigger life-changing? And we're still in AI, right? We're still in the early stages. But like, what changed life more for humans, and what will change life more for humans? And clearly AI is building on internet, but I think about like, what was life like in 1995? Like data that didn't exist. So if I wanted to look up housing market statistics in 1995, what would I have had to do? Did it even exist? I don't even think it existed. Local MLS would have had like sale price figures. I would have had to have gone to a realtor, right? Yep. And been like, print me out the local report.
Yeah, and they would only have the listings that their brokerage knew about, or they have to drive around to other brokerages to find out what's on the market. They had sheets, they had books.
See, that's crazy.
Yeah. So the answer. So I'm thinking. Keep going.
But then internet comes about, and then Redfin and Zillow come about, and now we have these aggregated market statistics: Case-Shiller Home Price Index, Zillow Home Price Index, and the MLS reports are now available for everyone to see. And so it seems like the presence of the internet made all of that immediately accessible. And but then so that seems to be a huge leap to me, right, in knowledge. What then is AI going to do, like, to then take that further? Right?
Yeah, everything. So when you said that, first thing that came to mind is say then, well, what made a bigger impact on humans, the internet or electricity?
Because electricity increased productivity. So like all of a sudden you have a washing machine in your house. Like you don't need to spend time.
So now we have to find what's the baseline of measurement.
Productivity.
Okay, so if we're going to use productivity as a measurement, electricity over the internet. Some would maybe argue that, right? Because of industries that were.
It's a good question.
This would be a thing that we could literally open chat up and figure out like a product.
So economics background here. So I'm thinking like, you could actually, they measure what's called total factor productivity, and they look at the GDP growth and they compare it to the hours worked in the economy. And if GDP is growing much faster than hours worked, that means that productivity is increasing.
Yeah.
So
that's a great measure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we could say, we don't know which, but there wouldn't be internet without electricity. Right? There wouldn't be AI as we know it right now without the internet. However, they are going to be able to build local AI that's not dependent upon the internet. There's already some companies doing it. Local AI. It will be just think about it because of privacy concerns.
But so how are you going to get it without the internet?
The processing power will happen all on your local on your device.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
So the internet isn't. I think the productivity factor, if we're going to use that as a measure, will be greater because of AI. If I look at, this is my prediction. Over the last 25 years, from the dot-com boom of the 2000s to now, if we measure from the growth that we've had in the last 25 years versus the growth that we will have over the next 25 years, that bell curve will be extreme, like much steeper of what AI is going to do because of the adaptation, how quickly it's changing everything. And it will be integrated into everything. And it will just, I don't even open Google anymore.
Yeah. And even if you do, Google now has their AI summary at the top.
So your stove will have AI built into it. Your refrigerator will have AI built into it. Every electronic device will have AI.
How's it going to increase your productivity? So, okay, I get it for research. That totally makes sense, right? So like, So internet gave me the ability myself to more easily research home prices.
Yourself.
Right? But now AI almost could do the team of like 10 researchers.
More than that.
Right. 10 and then they give you succinct, like, here's what matters. I just saved my time. I now don't have to hire people to also do it. So that makes sense. Okay, but AI in my stove. All right, like how is that like saving me time?
Because maybe the stove, and it's already there. Maybe the stove's also a refrigerator, and then your meal's already sitting in there. It knows. Or maybe
It
Nick,
makes the meal for you.
there's a human. This is where it's really going to happen, and I think we're all going to have these. Just as we all had, like, there was a time in the 50s where microwaves became popular. I think it was the 50s. We're all going to have a humanoid robot in our house in the same way that we have a microwave. And that humanoid robot will be doing your laundry, will be making sure that everything's taken care of, and it'll be using AI processing, imaging processing, everything, and will pick up on the habits to know of what you need as a person to make your life better. And to say that that's not going to happen means you're not paying attention enough to what is happening.
I think it's definitely gonna make my life
because
better.
I can open chat right now and on the advanced voice and open the video feature and point at something and say, "What am I looking at?" And it knows immediately.
That's awesome. I agree with you.
And we're early. We're early.
No, I know we're early. I'm just trying to make it tangible, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
I'm trying to be like, all right, so like,
I'm in the weeds, dude.
Great. Like I can point my camera at that camera and it says that's a camera.
Right.
But like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like, so what's the utility? Like,
okay, you point at that camera and you say, it just stopped working. What kind of battery do I need?
All right. So that saves me the time of having to research and watch a YouTube video.
Yep. And in the future, you tell your humanoid robot, something's wrong with this camera, figure it out. It finds out that something's wrong and it goes out and just gets you another one. Productivity spikes. Because now you don't have...
So basically it's going to be like humanoid robots and cars driving around.
You won't even have... Yeah, the cars will be doing their own thing.
So are we going to even leave our house? Or is like... You know, as I talked to a found up starter in Austin, really cool guy, and he was telling me he has a startup involving like... There's sensors and it tracks the inventory of food in different stores, and you put your list and then you buy it and it knows what's in your kitchen, and then we'll like tell you when you need to buy something, and then we'll automatically order it for you. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me his whole vision is like, no one's going to go to the grocery store in 10 years. He's like, it's going to know what's in your fridge. It's going to know when it's running low, and then it's going to order it, and then it's going to deliver it to you through like a self-driving car or like a DoorDash or whatever. And he's like, you're only going to go to the grocery store as like a fun little amusement. Like, oh, remember when we used to do this? And I was like, wow. But then if you think about what that society actually looks like.
Well, I think it limits the amount of work. Like, I don't know. Like we zoom, like, let's go ahead 100 years.
It's hyper specialization. So like more and more it's taking rudimentary tasks away, mm-hmm. right? And allowing you to hyper specialize in what you need to specialize in is what it's doing. And that does increase productivity, right? Like, but also makes society more fragile in a certain way, because like the grid goes down or whatever, like pandemic 2.0 or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's no one knows how to do anything.
The more advanced a society becomes, the more fragile it becomes.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, you know, then there's all the conspiracies that there was advanced civilizations beyond what we already know, right? And they could have been wiped out by an asteroid. Who knows? I'm not going to go down that conspiracy rabbit hole, but there could be some truth to that. If they were advanced and then they got wiped out because they lost one of their main things. Imagine if we lost power. We have, like, COVID showed us that things can get weird quick.
Sure.
And imagine if we didn't have power for 12 months.
Don't know. I don't even know if I want to think about that. What I do want to say, though, you said conspiracies. I asked one of my friends, like, what's your big idea? He was like, there should be a show on Netflix that's the Great Conspiracy Show. And it's basically a law. It's like in a courtroom, and it's two lawyers. Each episode is two different lawyers arguing either side of a conspiracy. And it's done in a way where it gives like 50-50, and like it could be ridiculous ones, like, is the earth flat? Or it could be ones that are more germane to like popular culture, like JFK assassination. But like it'll almost take like a legalistic debate on the conspiracy theory. And then by the end of the episode, the judge or the jury will rule on, is it thrown out? Is the case thrown out, or is it accepted? And I was like, dude, that's an amazing idea, because like everyone would watch that show. Like, I'd watch that show, and then you would want to see like, oh, how are they going to rule?
What's the rebuttal to the other side?
People would also be so triggered by it too at the same time.
Well, and to find a definitive answer at the end, because that's what makes a conspiracy is that you can argue it in an infinite loop, right? Because there's not enough.
But then the judge would be like, whatever the legal thing, they'd be like overruled. Like you know what I mean? It's like so they put some guardrails around like that, and if maybe it'd be.
No, that's funny. Entertainment, because whatever entertains us, man. I had so much. Well, back to the AI thing about specialization. I think our specialization is going to come in curiosity, in the quality of questions that we ask.
Oh, like knowing how to prompt.
That should be the main focus of all education right now. Is how do we teach people how to ask good questions? Because
AI specifically, or just anyone
in general. I mean, yes. Think about it. If I didn't know how to ask you questions, it would be a pretty boring interview.
I would just be reading real estate statistics.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So being able to ask good questions is how you get what you want out of life. And now you have this tool to where literally, if you can ask a good question, it will give you a good answer. It will tell you if you know how to ask. Well, okay, I want to do this thing, and then it gives you that. And we go, well, what are the steps I need to do that? And answer it in the words of a professional, and give me step by step, and don't stop prompting until it's complete. And like, there's all these things that you can do. With curiosity, I'm fascinated by curiosity because Einstein says I'm neither clever nor especially talented. I'm only very, very curious. So I think curiosity will become the real human intelligence.
I think you're right about the questions, because I think it can help someone, first of all, directly knowing how to prompt ChatGPT, right? But then also that probably improves your ability with humans, right? Too, right? Like just direct, like how to relate to people.
100%.
And then during the pandemic, everyone stayed inside, especially Gen Z. It's like,
yeah, they don't know a world outside of their iPads. There's the iPad kid. Have you ever talked to an iPad kid?
No.
I'm not going to call out my family, but I was just with family the last weekend, and
what are iPad kids like?
Dude, they don't know. They're geniuses. They're so smart, but there's no communication skills. My sister went to high five and just looked at her, like.
Wow. So the quantum leadership is lacking maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Connectivity. Yeah. Like, you're still a human, but they're so into the digital world. They could smoke you on an iPad, right, of what we could do on a computer. But yeah.
That's interesting. So there's pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
Right.
Nick, I asked every guest, if it's your birthday, we're in St. Pete and we're going out to eat, where are we going?
I don't want to give I was going to say 4-2.
Yeah.
I just went there last night, but it feels like such too easy an answer.
Well, it was top of mind.
It was top of mind. I'm a creature of habit, so I like going to the places I go. So I would say 4-2.
Yeah. 4-2 is great for a birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Love that, man. For the few people who don't know how to find you, where can they find you?
Reventure Consulting on YouTube, www.reventure.app for my web application, and also Reventure Data on Instagram.
Sweet, man. Yeah. Sweet. Well, dude, this is a really fun episode.
Yeah, that's great.
We should do this again.
We
should find some conspiracies and just maybe we can find some conspiracies data-driven tied to St. Pete. That's a thing.
I think Florida for sure.
We can do some of that.
If you mark Florida, everyone's interested in Florida.
Yeah.
So I think Florida's such a fascinating place. It's just such an interesting place.
Yeah, maybe we can find some conspiracies around the pirates or something.
There's got to be something around Miami.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then what's going on in Orlando?
I don't know,
it's
man.
Disney, and then what else is there?
Yeah. Fun fact we just learned about is that St. Pete was like a destination because of the sunken gardens prior to Disney. And then Disney squashed it because people were no longer coming here for the sunken gardens. They were going to Disney.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was like the 1920s.
This is the 40s, 50s.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm always fascinated. What did something look like 100 years ago?
Yeah.
So fascinating to think about. Apparently the Yankees used to play here in St. Pete, like spring training or something.
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Babe Ruth used to
be at the St. Pete
maybe.
History Museum is pretty cool for that.
Where's that?
Near the pier.
Okay.
Yeah.
To check that out.
Yep. Tons of good stuff. Dude, appreciate you. Thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
We'll do it next time.
Yeah.
All right. If you made it this far, Nick, one last thing.
Yep.
If they're still with us, what's one word they should comment below?
Hello.
Comment hello if you're still here. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. Appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.